or not, here we come.
We are live.
We are.
We live on this Thursday afternoon. Welcome to episode 6 of the Limitless Mindset. We're talking about the law of alignment today. This one is going to be a good one. This one is a really good one. And so today I got some really special guests here today. Mr. John Bodner and Tim.
Bodnar. Close.
Bodnar. See, I'm getting closer, man.
Yeah, you got
Baby steps. Baby steps. And so before I let them introduce themselves, my name is Logan Manzanaris. I'm a business owner, a fitness professional, transformed well over 2,000 people's lives through this little thing we call health and fitness, real estate investor, a husband, a father, and one of the most grateful people on this planet. And so today we're talking about the law of alignment. And I said we have John Bodnar with us today and Tim Cruz. And so Tim, do you want to start by introducing yourself and who you are?
For sure, yes. So my name is Tim Cruz. For those of you that don't know me, I am a coach here with BSB Wealthy Body Coaching. Absolutely passionate about picking up heavy things and setting it back down. I'm a self-proclaimed meathead. And I'm even more passionate about helping people fulfill and realize the strongest, healthiest, wealthiest version of themselves. So that's what I do, and that's why I love it.
Awesome. And John, who are you, my friend?
So my name is John Bodnar, and I am also a coach at BSB Wealthy Body Coaching. That's a really cool shirt. Would apply. And my primary focus is also, yes, allowing people or helping people to reach their full potential in terms of health and wealth and mindset. And that's why we're here to talk about mindset today.
Let's go. All right, law of alignment. So let's dive into what is the law of alignment. And so the law of alignment says that everything we think, say, and do, it must be in alignment with what we want to manifest. When our beliefs and actions are out of alignment with truth, it creates pain and problems in our lives. So the more closely our beliefs are aligned with truth, the greater power we have to manifest our creations. So who wants to take this one? Who's feeling it right now?
I can definitely jump in on this one.
Go for it, Tim.
First off, I just want to say this is one of my favorite laws. Last week, we talked about the law of attraction, and I believe that this is kind of like your left and right hand. The law of attraction does not work without the law of alignment. And I believe there's actually a cognitive bias that comes in with the law of alignment when it has to do with authenticity or congruency with who we are. What we say we want needs to be in line with what our actions are actually pointing towards. So kind of as a simple analogy, if you will, if I want to be, I'm just going to actually use myself as an example. I'm competing in nationals in about 17 weeks. And so I'm saying, this is what I want. I want to win this competition. But if my actions don't align with the outcome, it means nothing. It's just a dream. So the law of alignment, I think, is very integral to actually tying the dots together between, law of attraction, what you want, what you are attracting into your life, and actually what you manifest in reality of the results in your life.
That's awesome. Yeah. John, keep rolling with that a little bit.
Yeah, I'll give another example. So for me, I've always known that I want to be very successful. And for a long time, that was a really arbitrary idea to me. I didn't really know what that looked like. So I had this idea in my head that I need to be this successful person, but I wasn't taking any steps to get there. I had a job, but I knew it wasn't going to get me where I wanted to be. And so I just stayed there. And there was a lot of friction going on because I knew that where I was now wasn't getting me closer to where I needed to be or where I wanted to be. And what it took was defining what my truth was and realizing that, okay, this isn't serving me right now, which allowed me to change my beliefs and change my circumstances in a good way and truly be more aligned with what I'm looking to accomplish. If you don't have that alignment, then you are not going to manifest what you want. That's what this all comes down to, is being able to manifest the life that you see for yourself.
Yeah. I think that point of being like your beliefs being aligned with truth, I think, is really important. And it's like that incongruency is what eats you up. And I remember about almost 3 years ago today, pretty close. I remember being just really out of shape. It was like probably in the worst shape I'd ever been in. And I was really focused on growing this business, right? I was so focused on growing the business. And at that point, one of the limiting beliefs I had was that it had to be the business or it had to be my health. And my family was involved in there too. So I was like, oh, so I chose that I could only have my family and my business, and I couldn't have my health to go with it. And so I hadn't worked out for months. I stopped taking care of myself. And what do you know, like my business actually started to go down because I no longer believed in what I was presenting to clients. I no longer believed in what I was selling subconsciously, because I wasn't doing it myself. Because I wasn't doing it myself, it was really hard for me to convince somebody else to do it, right? And so that's where I saw this, this biggest friction of law of alignment of like, of course I know people need to work out, but if I was doing it myself, it made it harder for me to try to convince someone that they should do it when I myself is in like literally like I should be on the other side of the table, right? And so with that being said, like as we move to this next slide here, like this is basically what that talks about, right? Is that our beliefs must be pure and whole and not met with these contradictory beliefs and desires. Like we actually must be single-minded in order to gather the power we need to accomplish our goals and realize our vision. And so it's basically, if we want to like put an asterisk next to it, like we can't manifest what we want when our beliefs are misaligned with our desires, right? And so, John, tell me your thoughts on this.
I think the little asterisk down there is a really powerful way to say it, because it's true. If I let's go back to my analogy of working in software, where I wanted to change people's lives and be a very successful person in terms of fulfillment, and I have this belief that I am going to be in this job for a long time, or that software is the right place for me, and turns out that that's not the truth, then I will never manifest what I want, and didn't until I started here. And so it's just really, really so important. I can't stress enough how important it is to make sure that your beliefs are in line with what you want, and not only based on what you want, but based on where you are right now and whether what you're doing at the moment is also serving you. Because what you're doing is really indicative of what your beliefs truly are, whether you're consciously aware of them or not. And that's where belief breakthrough comes into play, which I imagine we'll be talking about here in a little bit.
So Tim, how do you see this show up with people who are trying to lose weight? Where do you see this show up the most, and how does it rear its head?
So kind of two points on this slide, and relating it to people that are trying to lose weight and get in shape. So the first one is, I think it's struggling with the words here just a little bit, but I think it's really important when we go into law alignment to have like obviously a clear vision, a clear goal. But what that does is it brings up, I think the tricky part is not necessarily the contradictory beliefs or actions that are obvious. So like obviously if you're eating Taco Bell and you're drinking soda all day long, those are the easy ones. Those are the low hanging fruit that we know are not in congruency with our goals and plans of being healthy, wealthy bodies. I think what the tricky part is it starts highlighting those self-limiting beliefs that maybe you didn't even know that you had. So like, for instance, a very common one, and this doesn't necessarily with, okay, we'll use fitness. I won't even talk about money was where I was going to go, because that's another common one. But in fitness, you talk to somebody and they're really struggling. And then you get deeper and deeper and deeper, and they might have this self-limiting belief or this contradictory belief that maybe they don't deserve to be healthy and fit, or maybe they just don't believe that they could ever do it. And that's somewhere down inside them, somewhere deep, their unconscious brain, that is now sabotaging their actions in the process of getting in shape. So I think it's really important to think of that, that a lot of times having this law alignment will actually highlight things that we didn't even know that we believed. So for me, like a personal one is, it comes back to success. Like John talked about this when he was first talking about the law of alignment. I've always thought that I want to be successful. That's like a goal of mine. And then I start digging deeper into like, what does success actually mean to me? And to me, the definition of success is the difference between where you are currently and your potential. So like if your potential is up here, the amount of success you have is how close do you get to that actual potential that you have. But as I started going through therapy and going through a lot of belief breakthroughs and things, I really came to this realization that I didn't believe that I was worthy of success. And it's pretty heavy and it's pretty powerful thing to believe. So I found this was manifesting itself in my life in many ways, but the main one is every time I would get close to what I would deem a success, I would self-sabotage. I would start, missing appointments, or eating off of my plan, or like just staying up too late, just like forgetting all the things that got me to where I was in the first place. And really the only reason that was happening was because I didn't believe. Like, I believed that I actually wasn't worthy of success. I wasn't worthy of that. So the real solution of that, even though my alignment, my goal is there, my actions were not in line, but it was because there was this obstacle in the way, which was my self-limiting belief that I didn't even know I had in the first place. So I think it's important for us to think about that when we're talking to clients and really addressing their core issues.
Yeah, and I think that's like nail on the head right there. And that's like the biggest reason why addressing beliefs and addressing thoughts is truly like the problem. And the symptom it shows up is in the binging, in the overeating, and then not committing, the laziness, lack of motivation. Like that's like the symptom of it. But like the real problem is back what Tim just said, is like this core belief that I'm not worthy, I'm not deserving. And it's the biggest reason why people they get some success, and then all of a sudden they get a little bit of resistance, or they just literally just like they get scared of success and just like, okay, like I'm gonna go sabotage myself. Or they even get like a little bit of resistance. Let's say they don't have that same limiting with you, like you're not worthy. Let's just say that they feel like that they don't like, they're not worth it, right? Or that they when they meet resistance, that they fold. And so the moment they feel a little bit of resistance, they're like, oh, it's not worth it. And they basically talk themselves out of continuing or justifying, even though they know it's the right thing to do to continue, but they somehow talk themselves out of it, right? So it all comes back to what you believe up here in your head. And so what you talked about actually is going to be something we talk about in a couple slides. But before we get there, I think this is really important too. Like, so if we actually go back to Tim's example, like, are you really not worthy of success, Tim? Like, and like, is that the truth?
No, I am. Yeah.
Right. And so like, and that's where this comes in, is that like our beliefs must be aligned with truth. And so truth is independent of belief. So while you believe you're not worthy, like it's not true. Right. And so the more like absolute objective reality, regardless of what we believe about, like the more that we get those things to become more, your beliefs are aligned with actual truth, like that's when things start to take off. Right. And like a great analogy of this is that once upon a time, people used to think that the world was flat. A lot of people thought that. Right. And like the truth is it's not. Right. And so just because you think it's so doesn't mean it's true. And so this is where it's really important to understand, like in Alex Hormozi says this, and I'm going to butcher it because I don't exactly know how he says it, but basically the gist of what he says is that like we question all beliefs except for the ones that we believe to be 100% true, something along those lines. So it's basically like we believe, like we question everything except for the things that we believe to be true. And so like the things that you believe to be true, question those things. Everything should be up for discussion. Everything should be up for objectivity. It should be up for like, is that real? Right. And the more you can actually get into this concept of like questioning yourself, and not from a like a negative standpoint, like questioning your decision making, but it's saying like, is this belief serving me? Like what is the reason I do these type of things? And it's more from a place of curiosity rather than from a place of hate or pain. So like I think that's really the key to it, like coming from a place of true curiosity and trying to uncover the real reason of why you do what you do, from like why you wake up in the morning to why you eat the food you do, to why you believe things you like, why are you in the career that you're in? Why do you have the girlfriend or the spouse that you have? Right? Like, why do you choose to stay up until 10 a.m. every single, or 10 p.m. every single night, and then get up at 10 a.m. every single morning? Like, why do you do those things? And just like truly, it's actually getting to this habit of questioning why you do things, and then just understanding like, does it, like, number one, like, is this serving me? And number two, if it doesn't, then like, what can I do to change it? Mm-hmm. Right. So, John, piggyback on this idea of that your beliefs must be aligned with the truth.
Absolutely. And Tim and I have had similar experiences, it sounds like, in terms of really reaching for goals, trying really hard, doing really well. And then as soon as I got close, then yes, I would self-sabotage. And my belief from that was that I didn't actually have what it took to reach that level of success. And I always thought I was worthy, and yet somehow I didn't think that I was capable of, or I didn't believe. In fact, I believed actively that I was not capable of doing something. And that is, if anybody that I grew up with, or anybody who knows me personally, they would probably say that I'm capable of reaching my goals. And yet I'm the one person who actually needs to believe that I wasn't. And of course, yes, I self-sabotaged. Whether it's eating off plan or performing really poorly at work, whatever that looks like for sabotage, I did that. And it's all because I believed that I didn't have what it took to be successful, despite proving it to myself time and time again. I would only look at the times where I thought I proved that I didn't have what it took. And because of that, no, I wasn't going to get anywhere until I realized that it was there in the first place, which was a relatively recent revelation. And in the short time since I realized that, I have been able to persevere and continue to hit goals time and time again. Not always, right? Not always, but hitting them more often than not, and focusing more on the success and proving to myself that I am capable of whatever I set my mind to.
And to keep going with that, like, even though you don't hit all your goals all the time, like, ultimately, what does it, like, by you having, like, but you understanding, like this old limiting belief, like, what does it allow you to do?
By understanding the old belief, what does it allow me to do?
Yeah, so by understanding that you have this limiting belief, and like, even though you don't reach that outcome of your goal, like, right now, but understanding that, like, hey, like, this is limiting belief that's not serving me, like, what does it allow you to do? Like, what's the...
It allows me to either adjust my goal to something that I know I can hit and be more realistic and not treat that as a failure. So really what it does is it allows me to see the win in every single situation that I'm in, regardless of if I hit a goal or don't hit a goal. So if I miss a goal, then again, either something needs to be adjusted or I need to change my strategy. And doing those things proves that I'm capable of continuing to take steps. So at the end of the day, if you're taking steps every single day, that's what matters. It's just a matter of how big those steps are and if they're actually in the right direction. Does that answer your question, Logan?
Yeah. And so it goes back to truth, and it goes back to actually the one concept of, like, who's in control of you hitting that goal?
Right. Me.
Right. And again, ultimately, that's what a lot of alignment is about, is taking back control, understanding that if I didn't hit the goal, there's something that I was unaware of, I didn't do, or that I need to learn in order for me to actually achieve that goal, right? Or, like you said, even maybe adjust the goal based on the new information that you have. And ultimately, that's where you gain that power back, is when you're able to take responsibility rather than saying, like, oh, like, I guess I'm just not capable of doing this, right? Or I'm not worthy of doing this. And then all of a sudden you stop and you, like, literally, like, once you say those things, it gives your brain permission to turn off and just say, okay, I'm not capable. And so you don't give yourself the opportunity to come up with solutions. You get into, like, I can't mode. When you get into I can't mode, boom, your brain shrinks versus when you're like, how can I make this goal happen? Like, because it's on me. Now you start to create more solutions. You start to, like, said, you learn the right lessons. By those lessons, you're like, okay, now you have new information, and allows you to, like, take another stab at it. Keep going, keep trying, keep moving forward, right? Tim, you want to finish this one out here?
Yeah, absolutely. So first off, I just want to say, John, it's really hard to picture you as a self-sabotager. It really is. And to kind of throw and I don't know who's this quote, but the quote was, you can't fake passion, because if you fake passion, eventually you're going to meet somebody who has real passion and they're going to embarrass you. And for those of you that don't know John, the reason I'm saying it's really hard to believe that he self-sabotages, because he does truly embody someone who just, like, he's super passionate. He's definitely not faking it. He's someone that lives the life. He doesn't just espouse information to his clients or to people on the internet. He does definitely live that way. So for starters, it's really hard to picture that, John. But I think what that brings up is that it's important to recognize that, and I think this is a misconception a lot of clients or prospects, people that are, like, look at fitness professionals as other than themselves, that we all struggle with the same exact things that you guys out there that are listening struggle with. Like, we all have self-limiting beliefs. We all have hard days. We all have obstacles that we come up against. So these principles that we're talking about, they're kind of self-serving in a sense, because we use them ourselves to get our goals and to get more advanced in our life. And we're just trying to share the information with you because we found what works, not because we were born with some special gene that, we just get what we want. We go through everything that you guys go through too. So like, those are kind of the points I wanted to bring up. On top of that, there's flat earthers all around the globe. All around the globe.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
You've seen the tweet, huh?
That's awesome.
Oh, gosh.
All right. So, and this is going to piggyback exactly what we just talked about, right? But the more aligned our beliefs are with truth, the greater power we have to manifest a powerful and purposeful reality, right? And the false beliefs really hamper our creative power and lead us to poor mixed results. And truly, like, we lack the power to the extent that our beliefs are false. And so, like, we literally just touched on this. And so, like, actually, we'll tell a little story. Actually, if you go back basically to what Tim talked about, with the idea of being that people look at certain people, like, let's just say in our industry, a client looks at us as business professional, like we are different, like that we were born with this, or we're genetically gifted, or whatever it may be, right? And ultimately, like, we definitely deal with the same things everybody else deals with. And this hit home for me on Wednesday when I was driving home from my wife, and I was sharing her some of the goals I had, and like some of my feelings about how I was nervous and uncomfortable, and like how I just was like talking myself out of it. And then she sat there and she's like, man, like I'm really glad you shared that with me. Like, I had no idea. She's like, I love you every day, and I see you just like do this and you crush this, and you just like a robot, you're just like laser focused, and like I didn't even honestly know that you struggled. And it was kind of like that wake up moment for me. I'm like, dude, like every day I wake up, like every single day I have these internal battles. Every single day I have these thoughts in my head, but I've also worked at them, and I've learned how to accept them. I've learned how to embrace them. I've learned how to use them as a positive thing to help me move forward and empower me rather than disempower me. And I think that's ultimately what this is really about, is understanding that like these beliefs, these thoughts of like self-destruction and like blowing it all up, like they never actually go away. But what you do is you just anticipate them, you get used to them, and now you have a plan for them. And so ultimately, like, you know what to do with them, so they're not as big of a deal to you, because you literally just have, like, you know what you're going to do when these things start to come up. And I think that's really the message that I want to deliver, is that like an amateur believes that these things go away, and a veteran just knows that they're always going to happen. It's like you just have a plan to deal with them, right? So yeah, so let's go ahead and let's move on, because we talked a little about this one already, but let's talk about this idea of cognitive dissonance, right? So cognitive dissonance is it's just this awareness of misalignment. So it's the discomfort we feel between our beliefs, desires, or our behaviors, right? So Tim, if you want to kind of dive a little deeper into cognitive dissonance.
Well, I think this is definitely a real thing in all aspects of life. So a good analogy of this is, let's say you're married and you're having an affair on your spouse. And you come home, generally what happens is the person that's having an affair will treat the spouse that's not having an affair with contempt, or like almost treat them as if they project their problems onto the spouse. It's very, very challenging. And I'm not speaking from experience, but I'm not my personal experience, but the experience of my friends and family members. It's very challenging to have an intimate, healthy relationship with somebody when you are having an affair. It's almost impossible, if you will. And the reason is because there's a massive cognitive dissonance, because you know you're not being true and authentic to the person that you are pretending to be true and authentic to. So I think the same goes with fitness, with fat loss, with, living this wealthy body lifestyle. Is if we believe one thing, we hold these truths with our mouth and our head, but our actions do not align with them, it creates a whole hell of a lot of turmoil within us, and it slowly just erodes our character. So I find it very important to live in alignment, not just from the outcome standpoint, but from a quality of life standpoint, and also a fulfillment and enjoyment of someone's life. If you don't have that alignment, you're slowly just going to erode. So I think it's more important than just the outcome. It's very critical to just the way that we live our life and having enjoyment and fulfillment in our life.
100%. That's awesome. I love that. John, anything you want to add to that?
Well, talking about the awareness of the misalignment, and knowing like you're doing something actively that isn't helping you, so or isn't getting you closer to where you want to be. Or it could be something as simple as like, I really want to have a candy bar, even though I know that I'm not the type of person, or I don't want to be the type of person who eats candy bars, even if it's not going to cause me to gain weight or anything. Like,
Mhm.
so for example, Logan, your lovely wife gave my lovely wife a gift basket full of a bunch of goodies, and I saw it and was like, oh, that's awesome. And I was like, but dang it, I know I'm gonna have some, and I don't really want to. And so I found myself like I had a little candy thing. It was fine. I didn't feel misaligned. Then I had a couple more, and even though I know I wasn't doing any damage to myself physically because the amount I was having was insignificant to the amount of work I've put in, it was still I still felt misaligned consciously because I was like, I didn't want to have that, or I wanted to not have. And that consciousness of the misalignment can be very difficult to handle. And that's where, going back to what you were saying, Logan, as far as those internal battles that you have every day, like they're not going to go away, but being prepared to handle them is what truly matters. So if I had been more prepared to be like, okay, I know that I'm bringing this gift basket home and there's going to be temptation there, but I didn't handle it. I didn't handle it on the front end, and I found myself eating more than I wanted to. So it's, yeah. And that consciousness of it it'll kind of tear you up, and it makes it easier to shut down if you're aware of it without actually taking any steps to handle that misalignment, the cognitive, the dissonance piece of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's important to know that we're going to have battles every single day. So why give ourselves more battles than we already are going to have? And every time
Exactly.
you do something that's not in alignment with what your purpose is, you're just giving yourself another battle and another reason not to trust yourself. And so I think it's important, like ultimately trusting yourself is one of the most important qualities you can have. Knowing that you're going to be, you have the power and the capability to make the right decision at any time. And all we're doing every time we do something outside of alignment is we're giving our brain evidence, another data point to prove that we cannot trust ourselves.
Yeah. It's awesome. I mean, that right there is like, that should just be clipped and just say like, that's the piece right there, right?
Yeah.
It's that right there. It comes back to that, which just says like, the decision-making process is the thing you actually are working at. Like, that's the thing. Like, more you get comfortable with your decision-making process, like that's the thing you're trying to win. So like, even in John's example, we use his example, like the candy was not the problem, right? It's the decision-making process that he was not prepared for that made him feel in not alignment. That was it. Like the candy's not the problem. And so again, like when people think about like certain foods, like, oh, I can't have this food, I can't have this food, that's not your problem. Your problem is your decision-making process. You don't have a filter, you don't have a reason, you don't have like you don't have a North Star which you're going for with your decision-making process, because ultimately, like that's really what you want. Is you want that personal power to be able to make the right decision and not be tempted, or to not make emotional decision, or make the logical decision. Whether that's like having candy or not candy, like it really is irrelevant. Like if it's part of your plan, have the freaking candy. If it's not part of your plan, they don't have the candy, because it's your decision-making process and your personal power that truly, that's what you're striving for. It's not a certain number on the scale. It's not a certain look in the mirror. It's that true ability to be like, I make the right decision and I believe in myself, right? I believe myself enough to know that like I can say no to anything and I can say yes to anything because I believe in myself, right?
Exactly.
So this basically turns us into an example, right? I know it's kind of cut off the bottom here a little bit, but so like, with that being said, right? So this is actually a good point, or a good example of John is like, so how did you justify it? If you remember, like, how did you justify having that candy? Like, do you remember that process?
It was Nicole was enjoying it, and I wanted to enjoy it with her.
There you go, right
And
there.
then the other thing too was like, oh, it's a gift. Hey,
Yeah.
it was unexpected. I'm just gonna have it because it's a gift.
And so like that's exactly what this cognitive dissonance talks about, is like we always are going to find a way to make ourselves right, because like we actually, like as human beings, we cannot live with incongruency. Like we cannot. And so like we either got to change our story or we have to change ourselves. And like most people, they just change their story because it's easier, right? But I think it's like I think it's important to understand that is like even as people like us, like I would say that we're all three very much people who are very much in alignment with, like, we live the lifestyle, we do it all, like we talk the talk, we walk the walk. But even us as people who live at 100% with my lifestyle, like we still make justifications and reasons and stories. We're just like not conscious of it all the time, right? And so again, like I think it's important to understand that is that like it's always going to happen. Again, the more aware of it you are, the better you can, like in the situation specifically, now that we're talking about it, I guarantee John is aware of it. He has a plan for it next time going into it. Like he'll be able to handle it in a way that's congruent with himself. And maybe next time he just plans on having the candy, right? Or maybe he does make the decision, say, I'm not going to have it. But ultimately, like he won't live in congruency, because now, like this situation, he's gonna learn the lesson from it and take it and move forward with it. And that's ultimately what this is really about, right? So anyway, John, if you want to keep going with that, if you want to.
Well, I'll tell you my plan. My plan next time I'm in a situation like that is to simply consciously decide on whether or not to have it, rather than just living by default and having it because it's there because my wife's eating it. And I'll be honest with you, the odds are pretty good that I'm going to decide to have it, but it's going to be worth it because it's a decision that I made. It's gonna bring me that little tiny bit of joy, and I will know that it's not doing me any harm towards my goals. So that's the simple plan, and it's something that I tell my clients all the time. Like, if you're in a situation where you need to make a decision, at least make it, and decide that that's the one that you want to make, and just understand what's going on in the background or the back end that makes that decision serving you, like one that actually serves you. So it's truly that simple for me. It's just, or not for me, but in general, make the decision, understand where it comes from, and consciously decide if it is truly what you want to do or not.
Yeah, that's awesome. Tim?
So I'm going to use a pretty strong language to describe my relationship with cognitive dissonance. I hate cognitive dissonance. Like, it is something that really, like, when I said it erodes you, like it maybe affects me more than anybody else, but it really erodes me. Like, it gave me a very, very, very poor relationship with food for a very long time. And I'll give you an example. So one of my first competitions, I had this coach that was super hardcore. I think I was eating something around 600 grams of protein a day, and that was like it. I was eating a pound of steak every 2 hours. And then occasionally he would say, all right, go eat a cheat meal. But every time I would eat that cheat meal, I would feel so out of alignment because I had my mind set up. This is what I'm going to eat. This is only what I'm going to eat. And I'm going to, follow this plan. He would give me a cheat meal. I would go eat the cheat meal. And then I would drive directly from, like, let's say sushi was my number one go-to for cheat. And I would eat so much, like, till the point I was like sick. I would drive straight from the sushi restaurant to the gym, even if I've already worked out that day. I would go back to the gym and I would work off the calories that I just consumed via the cheat meal. So sometimes I'd be there for 2 to 3 hours doing cardio, weight training, circuit training, like just whatever I could do to burn those calories, because I almost couldn't go to sleep at night if I felt like I wasn't in alignment with what I said I was going to do. And so I'm not saying this is not a good example for the clients to follow. This is not a good example to go eat a cheat meal and then go work off the food. It's a terrible idea. What it highlights, though, is my disdain for cognitive dissonance. And now I have a very similar approach. I follow a meal plan. I eat the same foods every single day. Like the other night, Angie came into the house. That's my girlfriend, for those of you that don't know, came into the house, and she had bought these things called Tim Tams, which are like Asian chocolate cookies. And she came home, she's like, these are my absolute favorite cookies. She was like super excited about it. She's like, do you want one? And I was like, absolutely not. And I said it just like that, like, absolutely not. She's like, why? Like, it's like literally 50 calories. It's not going to do anything. I'm like, that's not the point. The point is that if I have this one cookie, I have to live with myself knowing that I had this one cookie when I said I was not going to have it. Now, if this was a different time of the year where I'm like, okay, a little bit more Pareto's principle, 80-20 type rule, I'm going to have a little bit here and there, I would have no qualm with that at all. But right now, since I'm on the straight and narrow, literally only eating what my coach has me laid out, I'm like, that one little indulgence, I won't sleep that well that night. I guarantee it. My stomach will get upset, not from the food, but from the dissonance that I'm feeling internally.
100%. And I think that point's important to understand when it comes to people when they're trying to lose weight, understanding that there is different phases of weight loss. And within those phases, like, you need to have like your specific goals, you need to be on plan, right? And so like, when I love to talk about the idea of like, when you get to your goal weight, you can eat whatever the hell you want, right? But that's like way back over here. That's like what I call phase 5. To start with, that's not the case, right? Like, you have to put in the work in order for you to get there. And the work is going to be start with you with a food list. And your goal is that you eat off that food list. You eat nothing else off that food list. Plain and simple. And that's the cognitive dissonance that we give to clients, is saying that, like, you eat off this food list and you do that, you're good to go. As soon as you eat off that, you're gonna start to feel incongruent, right? It's the same concept. And basically giving them parameters, understanding that, like, eating certain foods are not good or bad, right? But understanding that what your plan is, like, that's got to be your baseline. That's got to be your North Star. And like, it's literally like, how do I figure out how to follow my North Star so I stay congruent with myself, so I stay I say happy because the moment you start to like veer off that, all of a sudden you start to lose trust, and you start to lose trust not in the plan, you really just lose trust in yourself that you can handle it, right? And that's like what Tim just said right there is like, of course he could have it, but he told himself he wasn't going to because it's not on his plan right now, so it doesn't make sense. And so like instead of him making more work for himself in the back end, he's going to say no. It's actually the easiest thing to do. By saying no to that, though, he's just saying yes to himself. He's saying yes to his plan, saying yes to congruency, right? Which I think is super powerful. And so people, very similar. Like I'm very much somebody who's like, no, like no, I'm good. And sometimes people they'll question like, how do you do it? Like, how do you have the discipline? I'm like, the decision's made. Like I believe wholeheartedly in my decision-making process that once a decision is made, unless I get other evidence to prove me wrong, which I have no problem with actually, like unless that's the case, like once the decision's made, like that's just the decision. Like it's not a choice. And I think that's what actually makes it easier, is that once I make a choice to do something, the decision goes out the way. So like there is no feeling of should I or shouldn't I. It just becomes like, I'm good. It's like the same decision-making process. Like this is what I quoted the other day. I was like, if somebody asked you, and again, I'm going to use a graphic analogy, but I think it's like one that's easy. Like if somebody asked you to kill somebody, like, is there really a decision in that process for you? Like, or have you already made your mind up that you're not going to kill people? And so like that was, I don't know, it popped my head the other day, but it's like, I use that same decision-making process, but I pull it all the way down to something that most people, they don't have that decision made yet, that they're going to stick to their plan and go off their plan, or they're not going to eat a certain type of food, or not eat a certain type of food. They still have that upper option. And so as soon as it becomes an option, now all of a sudden you have a decision. And ultimately, if you're in a logical state, or if you're in an emotional state, like let's say most people are in emotional states because they are, like, do you think you're going to make a good decision in an emotional state?
Maybe.
Usually not.
Make an emotional decision.
Usually not, right?
Yeah.
But at the odd chance that you do, great. But again, if there was no decision there, it doesn't matter if you're in an emotional state, because you've already made your decision that you're not going to kill somebody. In this case, eat off your plan. Right?
Yeah. And ironically, it's actually, so this is something I was just literally just talking with my coach before this call, kind of diet psychology a little bit. The idea of having cheat meals versus not having cheat meals, and which they're both effective ways to diet and lose body fat. But the person that has a cheat meal has this semblance of hope every single week. And the analogy that he gave me was, in World War II, prisoners of war, they would throw them in these dark cages, like no sun, no light, no interaction with humans. And then randomly, without any warning or any kind of rhyme or reason, they would take them outside for like 20, 30 minutes, and then they'd throw them back in the cage. The prisoners didn't know when they were going to get taken out of the cage. They didn't know if this was their day to go outside. So they lived in this almost like this torture, like where they were torturing themselves with this thought of, oh, what if today's my day of freedom? And what they've done, like when we equate this to food, every time we go off plan, we are, for starters, we are putting foods into two different camps. We're putting foods as foods I like and foods that I have to eat, or foods that are diet foods, when in all reality, they're just food. It's all just food. So in my opinion, if you go just sticking to the plan, staying with the plan, more than just the cognitive dissonance that will arise if you go off plan, you're making the dieting process even harder on yourself every time you indulge in a little bit here and there, because now you're putting foods into two different camps, what's bad and what's good. And really, they're all just food. So we kind of take the emotionality out of it. And I believe it was Dr. Kashi that said, the more time we can put between our emotion and the decision that we make, the more time we can interject, the better decision we're going to make. Because essentially we're removing emotion from the equation, which is not a good cognitive tool that we have to make decisions.
Yeah, 100%. Keep that distance between stimulus and response as far as you can until you create that logical decision, right? Which is really good. Yeah, and I think, again, we touched on this one earlier, but I think this just makes sense. So we're gonna spend a ton of time on it, but like when you're in a self-deceived state, like you don't want to take responsibility for your own emotions, behaviors, and choices and results. Playing the victim card and blaming other people and circumstance for our failures, like it keeps you disempowered, right? And so again, like I think we're all on the same page with this when we talked about it earlier, but like if you ultimately think that like the world is bad and that you have no control over your life, well, then that's just what's going to happen, and you're going to remain disempowered until you did like what John did, is that you take control of the situation and you say, hey, like I learned the right lesson. Now I can use this to move forward. Then you can just do that. You can move forward. But the moment you start to blame circumstance or people or whatever, your emotions, is the moment that you truly have no opportunity to change, right? So anything you guys want to add to that?
Nothing super specific, but it's a really important thing to be aware of, because if you're not aware of your tendency to play the victim card or blame somebody else, especially blaming your circumstances, then you are not going to get out of those circumstances. You're not going to be able to change your life if you're constantly just saying, oh, I'm just going to wait for it to change. This is bad. A good example is if you're in a bad work environment and all you do is complain about the work environment, you're probably not going to leave that job anytime soon. And if that's a solution that you need, is to leave that job and find something that serves you. How are you going to come to that conclusion if all you do is complain about what your day looks like every single day?
Tim?
Kind of add to that a little bit. What's the old cliche? Whether you believe you can or cannot, you are correct.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the most fundamental thing with this whole topic is when you start blaming or you start pointing the finger, you've essentially just given over the reins of control to something that you have no control over. So like whether it's the weather or your job or your boss, like when you take responsibility, the cool thing that happens is you also take ownership, and now you have the ability to change. So starting with belief, like I believe I can,
Mm-hmm.
then you can go down the chain and actually affect change. But if you believe you can't, you believe that you have no control, it's somebody else's fault all the time, then you'll never get out of that cycle of like being a victim. And I think that's the most disempowered position you can be in.
Yeah, absolutely. And so let's talk about how we get out of this victimhood, and how do we actually like use this concept of law of alignment using the belief breakthrough process. And so like the real challenge with this law is that most of our misaligned desires and beliefs, they originate in our subconscious mind, which basically means that we don't even know, right? And so the value of doing breakthrough work, like literally like the breakthrough process is literally like the thing to bring the law of alignment to fruition. Like that's actually what the breakthrough process does. It helps us uncover these beliefs, these things that have been holding us back that we didn't even know we had. Right. And it brings them to light so we actually can start working on them and like, hey, like, does this belief of I'm not worthy, does that actually serve me? Right. And then you're able to actually work on it and be like, okay, it doesn't. Right. And then you start to replace these and upgrade these with beliefs that do something like I am worthy, I'm capable. I see evidence of me being successful. I see it here. I see it here. Like I deserve it. Right. And that's ultimately what the breakthrough process is. Like we talked about breakthrough in all these episodes so far, but like belief breakthrough, literally like the number one thing it does, it uncovers these hidden, limiting, self-sabotaging beliefs. That's exactly what the breakthrough process does, right? John, any feedback on that?
Yeah. So out of all of the laws we've talked about, and quite frankly, all of the ones that we're going to talk about, I believe that the law of alignment is the one that belief breakthrough works with best, or at least maybe not the best, but the most obviously. Because like it says, most of our misaligned desires are subconscious, or our contradictory beliefs are subconscious. And until you are aware of those contradictions, you're gonna be really confused, and you're gonna be really frustrated and probably kind of sad. And my example for that is I relatively recently discovered that, or accepted rather, that I do have a fear of failure. And for the longest time, I would be so confused because I would be afraid to attempt something, but I'm like, I'm not afraid of failing. What's going on here? Like, what's going on with that? And then once I finally acknowledged, and not really acknowledged, but just allowed myself to realize that I do have this fear of failure, those feelings made a lot more sense. And I had a lot more tools in my toolbox to handle those situations when I'm feeling afraid. And that's the type of situation where, again, you're going to be super confused and so frustrated if you don't understand why you're even acting in a way that you don't believe in consciously, or in a way that you just straight up don't understand. Then I lost my train of thought there, but that's a really important thing to do. And belief breakthrough is hands down the best way to discover what those beliefs are.
And I'll I'll go back to what I said earlier about like we question all the things that we believe except for the thing, or like we question everything except for the things that we 100% believe in. Like that's a great example. Is like I would never question that I'm afraid of failure. Like that's just not who John is, right? And
Right.
it wasn't until that moment that you actually question, you're like, oh shit,
Yeah.
boom, there it was, right? It was like, duh. And then you were like, once you accepted it, now you're able to work at it. You're like, why? Like, okay, why am I afraid of failure? Now you're able to dive down this rabbit hole and figure out these subconscious, like um, these old memories that bring this to your subconscious, like why you believe that. And when you're able to actually real dive in and understand that, it allows you to at least understand where these thoughts originate from. And then once you understand, like, okay, I am afraid of failure. This is why I'm afraid of failure. Is that serving me? And then allows you to create this this path from where you're at to where you want to be, and now you get to create the bridge. And the cool part about belief breakthrough work is like you literally create the bridge right there on the spot. Like you get to create the story, you get to rewrite the story in a way that serves you rather than hurts you, right? Which is, I think, the most powerful thing. Because like I was talking about in the very beginning of this series, that like whether something actually happened or whether you just saw it in your head, like we actually our minds interpret it the exact same way. Like our minds don't actually know truth, reality versus what we believe in our head. And so I think it's important to understand that like most people use that, or most people it harms them because it's subconscious. But if we can actively use that concept and make it so like, hey, this belief serves me, this belief that once hurt me, now I use it as a way to empower me. It's the thing that gets me to the next level. That's really powerful, right? Tim, go ahead and follow up with that.
So kind of to call back, I think this was a couple weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks ago. You had said something to the effect of the vast majority of people live their life on autopilot. And I would go farther, maybe not the vast majority of people, but the vast majority of all of our time is spent on autopilot. And this could be an evolutionary mechanism that our brains have developed to filter out all the noise and really just pay attention to the actual signals that are happening in our life. But what it ends up doing is it ends up allowing a lot of these unconscious thoughts, these unconscious beliefs to run under the surface without us even being aware that they exist. So what this harkens is a really fundamental skill and practice that we all need to be aware of and also implement into our lives is the practice of introspection. So taking time to actually sit still and think, and actually, because it's uncomfortable, I'm not going to lie, like sitting alone with your thoughts, no other input, just letting them run around. It can become very uncomfortable, especially the closer that it gets to a limiting belief, the closer that it gets to something that you truly believe that doesn't serve you. It gets very uncomfortable. And I would challenge myself as well as everybody else to make this part of their daily practice, to sit down and actually just think and investigate on what's actually going inside. If you have a thought, especially a reoccurring thought or a reoccurring emotion, like whether you're angry or sad, or, you know, like you have the tendency to self-sabotage, like these things that are repetitive in your life, I would challenge myself and everybody else to just sit down and sit with those for a while and actually just listen to yourself. Trust your brain is designed and engineered in such a way that it's meant to actually process through all of these emotions and all of these limiting beliefs. We just get in our own way with our cognitive brain. We override those. And the number one way that I do it, and I see other people do it, is through just distracting and moving on. So, you know, when you come up against something like, oh, you know, this is my third failed relationship in a row, it always ends this way, but it couldn't be me, right? Even though I'm the only common denominator in the equation, it couldn't be me. So I'm just going to move on to the next relationship and try again, even though I've never actually identified what's going on that has caused those 3 breaking points in a row. So I find this very similar with fitness and fat loss. If you find yourself running into an obstacle over and over again, like let's say you get to week 3 or week 4, and that's always the week that you fall off the bandwagon, maybe there's something there. Maybe we should sit down for a second and just think. Just let your brain do what it's designed to do and uncover these unconscious thoughts. And then once we have those, we actually have the roadmap. Now we can actually work through the belief breakthrough process and free you of that. But unless we take the time to be introspective and actually know what the heck's going on, like check in with ourselves every once in a while, we're never going to know. We're going to be wandering aimlessly.
Yeah, and it's literally a great segue into great what you just said right there is like commit to doing the breakthrough every single day, because that's exactly what it does. Is it challenges you to to like, what is holding me back? Like, what is holding me back from losing 30 pounds? What is holding me back from being a 7-figure trainer? What's holding me back from like being the husband I want to be? Like when you ask yourself those questions, you're going to give yourself the answers. It's kind of crazy. Like that's where your intuition comes in and actually tells you exactly what, because it's like, it's your limiting beliefs just saying, okay, here's what it is. Like, here's exactly why I'm not doing this. Here's exactly why I can't lose 30 pounds. And that comes up to the surface. Like, oh, so it's because I don't feel like I'm good enough or I'm worthy. Like, where does that come from? Right. And then you go and it's like, they go back to memories. Like I remember remembering back when I was 10 years old, right? And I was hanging out with my dad. And then it goes in the rabbit hole of you understanding exactly why you have that limiting belief that you do. And so when you're able to make this stuff a daily practice, you're able to uncover the stuff on a daily basis, just like what Tim said. It allows you to truly get to the source of what is holding you back. And it's just you. And it's your limiting beliefs, right? And so I like to suggest doing breakthrough work in 2 ways. The first way is as a preventive measure, and I shouldn't say preventive, but as a like an offensive measure that you just do every single day. One of the very first things you do when you wake up is like you start to uncover these beliefs, start to figure out like what's holding me back today from reaching the goals that I want to achieve, right? And that's like the first way to do it. I think that should be done. Like I believe if it's important, to be done every single day. And so I think this is important, so I do it every single day. So that's the first place I see it. The second place I see it is when you actually do get triggered, right? When you're actually sitting there and you're upset with yourself, you're like, I just went off plan again. Like I'm week 3 and 4 again, and I just went off track. Like, why do I keep doing that, right? And then boom, right in that moment, why am I keep going on track in week 3 and 4? And then go through the breakthrough process in that moment and figure out exactly what your decision-making process is that led you to believe that you're the person who's not, whatever it is, you're not worthy, you're not capable, you're not deserving enough to stay on track, right? And then like, does that belief serve me? Is this going to help me? Is this actually going to help me lose the weight? Is this going to help me become a successful trainer? Is it going to help me become a successful husband? No? Are you ready to let it go? Let it go, right? What beliefs actually serve me? What's going to serve me to get to this goal, right? And then you're able to ask yourself these logical questions, and you're like, okay, right? Like if I want to lose 30 pounds, I must align myself with this belief rather than this belief. I must align myself with the belief that like I am deserving, I am worth it, I am capable, rather than I am not deserving, I am not worth it, I don't believe in myself, right? Like which one of those beliefs is going to help you get to your goals? And ultimately, it really is just your choice. That's it. Like that is really it. Like it is your choice. And when you truly understand that, life becomes really simple, and it literally just becomes doing the boring work every single day. That's it. So, Tim, you want to follow that with your recommendations on how to, and you just touched on a little bit, but just to put like a cap on it, like how should people use this breakthrough process? How should they use this law of alignment as a way to benefit their lives?
So this was something that I got into. I mean, I've dabbled in it in the past, but seriously committed to, is what I should say, committed to about 7-8 months ago. And it wasn't comfortable. It wasn't normal. It wasn't something that I naturally wanted to do. So in the beginning, before I saw any fruit of my labor, so to speak, I grouped this into a camp of practices that I call self-care practices. So they're things that should be fundamental for just daily life. So I believe in some sort of like belief breakthrough process, along with like meditation, movement, and then I believe in God. So some sort of spiritual practice as well, is like things that I just do daily. So I literally start my day with these every day. And in the beginning, I'm not gonna lie, I put this dang thing in my phone on my schedule at the same time every morning, whether it was Monday, Sunday, didn't matter. I had an alarm that went off. This was what you're going to do right now, just because I needed the habit more than anything. And it wasn't until that habit became habitual that I started seeing actually like some fruit from it. So the first few weeks, I'll say, habits are created anywhere from 21 to 28 days, 3 to 4 weeks is what it takes to habituate something. But I would say you have to kind of walk the walk. You have to go through the habit, like fully trusting that you're going to get something out of it, because it does come. It's a lot like eating healthy. It's a lot like movement. It's a lot like, these aren't instant gratification type activities. These are ones that are more like an investment that you invest in now and it pays you later. But once I got through that initial 3-4 weeks, I actually look forward to this every single morning. If I can't actually speak to a day in the last 8 months that I haven't done this, because it's literally been something that I look forward to doing. I'm just imagining if I woke up and let's say I was like running late or whatever, and I didn't have a chance to do my 15 minutes in the morning to go through this, I think I would feel really off all day long. And really, it's just that point in the day that I will check in with myself. I will check in with myself. I'll go through my emotions, go through where I am, and then go through any kind of breakthrough process. And I also include this as an SOS. So like if something blows up during the day, like some fight I have with my girlfriend or some kind of work thing or a family matter goes on, I'll take 10 to 15 minutes, go sit in my car and go through it again, because it just really, it's so impactful on bringing me back down to that baseline where I can make good decisions, where I'm not emotionally reacting to what's happening in my environment. So I guess kind of bullet points: schedule it in your calendar, make sure that you do it, because it's just like adopting a new habit. It's not going to naturally happen. You have to intentionally make it happen. Second, trust the process, know it's going to work, even if it doesn't work within the first few sessions. And then third, look forward to the fact that you're actually going to enjoy the hell out of this, and it's going to become a very fundamental part of your day. And that's when the real magic starts to happen.
I love it. I love it. John, give us the cap here.
Now, just add one bullet point, and this is something that we've said before, and I'm going to say it again, is that belief breakthrough is a skill, and it's something that you're going to get better and better and better at. And the better you get, the more you're going to get out of it. And then the more you get out of it, the more you're going to want to do it. And the more that you want to do it, the better you're going to get. And it just keeps feeding off of itself. But like Tim said, you have to trust the process. You have to believe and accept, quite frankly, that you are going to get something out of it, and accept that you're going to get better. It's going to be rough at the beginning when you do it on your own, but you're going to get so much better at it as time goes on that it can only yield a lot of fruit.
Yeah. And the same way we view as exercise as being the power and the growth of our muscles in our body, like the belief breakthrough is the power in the muscles of our brain, right? It's what helps really increase our emotional intelligence. And it's by doing this breakthrough, it's uncovering these false beliefs, these limiting beliefs, these subconscious beliefs, bring them to the surface, recreating them, and inserting with powerful beliefs. And again, like that's literally what it is. It's emotional intelligence. And you work on that every single day, just like you work on your body every single day, and do it for 6-7 months, and like your life will be totally different. Do it for a week or two, and you'll definitely see the difference. And you do it for the rest of your life, and like you'll be amazed at what you believe you can accomplish. Because once you, like Tim said, if you think you can or think you can't, you're right. So the more you start to believe in yourself, the more you think you can, the more stuff you'll get in your life. So thank you guys. Happy Thursday. Thanks for sharing your guys' information and sharing your wisdom. John and Tim, always appreciate it. Always appreciate the insight. And so we'll be back again next week for some more laws. And until then, though, my name is Logan Manzanaris, and we are out. Bye.